So the subtitle of my project could be How to Make Your Money, in my case £700 and 30p, Go a Long Way, or Why a Brown Bag Lunch and a Nearby Premier Inn Matters. So this was a hybrid workshop held at the Whitworth Art Gallery in Manchester as part of work towards making an AHRC bid. It was held at the end of June last year, and even in Manchester, climatic conditions were similar to those that Lania has described in London. It was also 5 days after I moved house. The project arose out of a then PhD student at Victoria University in Wellington and I, both presenting at an online symposium in the autumn of 2023. Both our papers engaged in very different ways with similar themes around how post-colonial ideas could be applied to interrogate wallpaper designing, making and retailing. And I reached out to her afterwards and we met with his supervisors, one of whom subsequently became co-PL International on the project, with the student now a postdoc as a specialist international. And the basis of the project is an entirely untapped archive at the Modern Record Centre in Warwick of the Wallpaper Manufacturers Limited, a huge conglomerate that controlled much of the global market in wallpaper until the 1960s. And seen in the centre is a page recording a meeting of the firm's Colonial Committee in 1914, while at right is an example of the company magazine, which, as you can see, foregrounds its markets in the dominions and colonies. I had used £100 of OpenARC funding the previous year to scope this business archive and the wallpapers themselves, which mostly went to the Whitworth. Critical, however, was our desire for the project to investigate the WPM as part of a study of imperial trade. And since wallpapers were first imported through Australia before directly to Aotearoa, New Zealand, that meant working with Australian partners and studying their archives and wallpapers alongside those in New Zealand. The aim of the workshop was therefore to generate and trial the questions that the project might explore to feed into the bid. What I had not appreciated was the value of an in-person meeting in a gallery which could supply not only a brown bag lunch, but also curatorial time and the venue cost in kind, bearing in mind at this stage we had no agreed partners and we'd only ever met online or over the phone. And both the UK archives, in Manchester, the Centre for the WPM, signalled here in the centre by the Crown Wallpapers brand, and at Warwick, whose presentation is shown top right, were critical to our project, and they more or less signed up on the spot. As Fiona was saying, you know, the value of physical presence as against online aspirations, I think, was very clear. Critical also was the role of the chair and vice chair of the Wallpaper History Society. My takeaway here is really never underestimate the value of a learned society. They were able to bring insights from their regular questions that they get on their Instagram feed from people who are doing up their houses to heritage professionals. They were also able to give insights on what members of the society, from designers and makers of wallpapers, might want to gain from the project. And again, they were involved with the discussion, particularly, you can see the headless participants, bottom right, actually looking at examples in the Whitworth collection. They offered us, you know, from their own knowledge as well, new questions that we might ask about the objects. Finally, as I mentioned above, the workshop was hybrid. This has a special meaning, as I'm sure you'll appreciate, when working with New Zealand and Australia. It basically means that colleagues there couldn't be with us between the hours of 11 and 4. However, they videoed their presentations, seen at top, that's Michael Leck speaking from Sydney, and at bottom, Eva speaking from Dunedin. And we gathered questions which were sent on to them later, and we had a follow-up discussion at 7 a.m. UK time. So what did we do next? Well, in the autumn, we submitted the bid. We survived the expert reviewing round, which came during the long holiday in New Zealand, so that was quite problematic, and we're awaiting the outcome. But one thing I am sure of is the fact that we were able to demonstrate real trialling of our approaches in front of real objects with all, as it became, 5 partners, was critical to us in assembling the bids. So thank you, OpenARC.